Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, I'm joined by, I think, someone that you all are going to love. He's a betrayed. He's written a book. His name is Adam Nisenson. He's written A Man's Guide to Partner Betrayal. Adam, I've read your book. There's so much great stuff in it, man. Thank you so much for coming into the podcast.
Thanks, Sam. Appreciate it. Glad to be here. Glad to talk about this topic. And man, that was a good introduction. I guess I have a lot to live up to here now today with you. So,
well, you already have, because the book, I'm always careful when I read stuff that it's sincere, that it's not a bunch of platitudes and a bunch of cliches. As someone who's in the betrayal trauma space, I'm sure you've had your fill of, this cliche and this euphemism and 3 steps to healing from what is absolutely life-altering trauma, right?
It's not how it works for sure, man. This is, it's life-altering, and I want to think in many ways it doesn't last the rest of your lifetime, but it takes years of work, and it's, I'll tell you, for all the men out there, if you do this work and you really dive into it, it'll be healing beyond what you can ever imagine. So it's good stuff, but it's hard stuff and it's painful, and you have to really look at yourself in your life. So, yeah.
Well, I guess we should start with, what led up to you writing this book? What prompted you to write something on you referred to a term I've never heard anybody refer to it, right? But masculine betrayal trauma recovery. You spend a good part of your book on that. So why don't you talk a little bit about those things? Because it's all fantastic stuff.
Yeah. There's multiple reasons why. First off, I was betrayed by my ex-wife over 13 years ago. And like a lot of the stories I hear with the men I work with, it was with another man that I knew. And most men, it seems to be that's a pattern. Like I knew the guy. That happens a lot. So I went through that. And back in my journey over 13 years ago, there was nothing out there. There wasn't, there were some books, but they were all written for women. I remember my ex and I went to couples therapy, and the therapist was kind of assuming and trying to make it like, well, what did I do wrong? And I felt very alone and alienated. And during that journey, I was starting to become a therapist, and it's taken me a while, but, as a therapist, and then I became a CSAT, I just started discovering how many of my own men had some form of betrayal, and they weren't talking about it. And then also, you probably know who Carol Sheets is. She's kind of like the pioneer, right, of a lot of this work. And I got to know her. She kind of became a mentor. And she was kind of like, why haven't you written your book? And why, you already help men. So let's put it out there and start the conversation. And so I did it. I wrote the book. I talked about, like in most of the chapters, I talk about my experience as it pertains to, like if the topic's on ego, I talk about what happened to my ego, right? And I kind of try to humanize it. I'm trying not to speak above anyone's head. And I kind of, I wrote it for men, the way men, how we talk, how we connect. And I wanted to make it super simple. I wanted to make and let men know they're not crazy. They're not alone. And also through the work, I've created a kind of like a 7 steps, a path. I find that men, we like to know where we're going and how it looks like, even though I say often, like, we don't like to ask for directions. We sure the hell want to know how we're supposed to get there. And so that's kind of how it all came into play. And it's my passion. It's also where I'm kind of spinning and pushing my practice and everything I do now.
I think any man that has the courage to help other men who are trying to heal from infidelity as betrayed partners is courageous. And one of the things that I thought that we could talk about that I think is so needed for the betrayed male is on page 79. You already referenced it, talking about ego, right? You talk about moving beyond your ego after partner betrayal is a journey of introspection, support seeking, and resilience building. It doesn't mean restoring everything that once was and that you once felt. It's about challenging your perceptions, stripping out what's not working anymore, embracing vulnerability, which is hard, and finding strength in your true self. So, man, for the betrayed male, now, and this relates to many betrayed females who are watching and listening as
Sure.
well. How do you help them with the ego? Because it's a hard piece to really deal with.
Yeah, that's probably one of the hardest parts. It's for most men, what I find is the ego is that first response when they find out about the betrayal. And it shows up in different ways. I would say it can show up in denial. I get a lot of that. Like, I'm going to fix this. I'm going to put my head down. We're going to get to work. We're going to also kind of pretend as if it never happened. That's one way. I see men like get deep into their work, right? So they kind of get some compulsivity going so they don't have to feel the pain, the ego, the ego wound, or I like to call it the ego trap. It gets us stuck in this space that I'm going to pretend as if, and if by doing so, I won't necessarily feel everything. And also the other part is for men, and I guess women too, but betrayal holds so much shame, and nothing will cut your ego at its knees more than some good shame. So a lot of projection, a lot of pushing away. I have guys that, they start to get in ruts with looking at porn or eating, maybe overworking out, which I guess is a good bad habit.
Right.
But yeah, I think, when I work with men, I think the most important part is I want them to know first that they're not alone. Like, I hold some men's betrayal groups, and it's so fun and interesting for me. Like, after that first time we meet, to see all of them have this like, oh, wow, I'm not alone. I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one that feels this. Right. And they can start to learn that they can validate themselves, or even having other men validate them kind of helps that ego. Like, it's DEFCON 5, right? It's protecting everything we know and how we want the world to see us. So for sure, the ego is a big, big part of this stuff.
How do you help men who struggle to really go inward, who say, well, maybe I should have done X, maybe I should have done Y, if I'd have just been stronger, or maybe if I did prioritize my physicality or whatnot, maybe if I was better in bed. How do you help them begin to understand, man, that's going to be a never ending spiral, right?
Yeah, man, now you want to talk about a trap. I hear that so much. Such a great question. I want to go backwards though in that question, because, so many of the guys I work with, and I did this too, will say like what was my fault, and right, like, what do I need to fix? And the guy wants to go instantly into looking at themselves, which therapeutically is great, right? Because I think we all have blind spots and ways we can grow and improve. But like, I'll tell you, like, when my ex told me, that was the first thing I said to her was, I wonder what my part is.
Hmm.
And what I want everyone to know is there's nothing you can do, even if you cheat on your partner and then that gives them permission to cheat. Nothing gives permission to cheat. I find that's kind of like a default we go to, where we think if someone else does something to me, I have, an eye for an eye kind of idea. But I'll tell my guys, look, your part is that you need to grow. Your part is, yeah, maybe you missed some things, but that didn't give your partner permission to cheat on you. And like my book talks about is this is your chance to find those growing edges, like I was talking about earlier. It's where I can learn, like, I don't do vulnerability very well? Was I working too much? Like these are the gifts, right? The silver lining, if you will, in the betrayal, where you get to become a better man. You get to not be maybe your father. You get to create what you want. But I find the biggest thing that happens for a lot of the guys I work with is they learn vulnerability, and they learn communication, and they learn like some accountability and integrity, and really learning to speak what they want and need in a relationship and not to be scared.
And do you find that they learn that because it's the right thing to do, and that's personal growth, not, oh, if I'd have just been a better dude, I would not be the victim of betrayal, right?
Yeah, I think it could be different for everyone. I see a little bit of both of those. For me, it's like, man, however you get there is great, right? Is what I don't want is to where you make it too much about yourself or you're self flogging yourself all the time.
Yeah.
Like we all have flaws. We all have ways and places we can be better. And let's be honest, relationships are hard. Marriage can be really hard. Even when it's good, you have to work on it. And it's so easy. Like I just watch people, like it's like once that space starts to happen, it just organically, you probably see this all the time, Sam, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger until all of a sudden you can't even see the other person. So it's to notice, it's to learn, it's to acknowledge, and it's to grow.
I think it's wonderfully said. And I love the fact that in everything that you're saying, it's got an undercurrent of compassion. It's got an undercurrent of what the betrayed male or female is having to wrestle with, that it isn't just a man, if you just do these three things, you're going to just heal and move on. God, I wish it was that easy.
So simple. Yeah. Well, look, nothing is, life isn't, and this work is not linear. There'll be a lot of twists and turns and ups and downs. So,
as some of my friends would say, damn straight. So I'm going to read this to you because I think this is another element that is from your book on page 86. I thought this was, and because I was reading, I was underlining it, starring it. I thought, yeah, bro, I love this part. Because I think for the betrayed, male or female, this is a big deal. But for a large percentage of betrayed males, they really deal with anger. And you talk about anger and projection. A common response is projection, where anger is directed outwardly as a defense mechanism, often accompanied by blaming your partner or the person with whom they were unfaithful. And for the betrayed male, dude, the anger is palpable. I mean, I've had some betrayed males with loaded guns go searching for affair partners. I've seen, as I'm sure you have. So how do you help them with that anger and the projection?
Yeah, man. I think to start, we have to realize that most men don't understand anger. And for most men, anger is a default emotion. And, often what I'll do is I'll break out that good old, the feeling wheel, right?
Yeah.
And I'll let them see, like, anger is important, right? It's one of our primary emotions. But I think what most men don't realize is there is such a thing as healthy anger. And that anger, again, is to go back to the ego. I often find that anger is connected to the ego. And that ego, when again, it's protecting our ego and how the world sees us. But when we let that go, underneath the anger is sadness. And in the sadness is where we get to heal. But, clinging on to the anger and the resentment, the other part in this work is it prevents you from moving forward. It prevents you from healing. And also it prevents you from finding and working on like the unresolved pain that you're in, and it keeps you stuck. And then the other part, I don't know if this was exactly in your question, but a lot of the anger, I know I did this. I projected a lot of my anger towards the acting out partner of my ex-wife. Right, man, I schemed, I thought about it. I had all those visions, those great things, the way I was going to just destroy him and hurt him the way he hurt me. And then one day I kind of realized, I was like, dang, like I've just wasted a lot of time, a lot of energy. Like I'm focusing on the wrong thing. And so I think you have to go through that phase a little bit. You have to, I think feeling the anger is great. I think, look, humans, fantasy's part of our life. Like have those little fantasies. And then again, take that breath and then start to do your work. Start to let it go and realize it's not about that other person.
Do you find that men particularly, and some women, I think it's all personality driven, but in your practice and in your history, do you find that sadness, grief, the grief cycle, if you will, is something, man, we as men just hate. We'd rather be angry than feel grief. We'd rather stay stuck in anger instead of grief. And
Yeah.
for many women, have you found that, and I'm obviously teeing it up for you, but many betrayed
Please.
women who they will sit in the anger because it feels a whole lot more comfortable and predictable than grief. When you write, listen, when I do videos on grief, or when I used to write subject lines on grief, nobody opens those. Nobody loves them. Everybody's like,
No,
the open
it's
rate with
scary.
them are like 1%. Nobody gives a rat's ass to open that stuff, right?
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, because anger is, I think I would say anger is false control.
Mm.
And like I said, it's a default. And men, right, we have that perception. If I'm angry, if I'm going to protect my honor, right, right, like again, protecting my ego. But one of the things I work with a lot of my men around is the concept of surrender. And just when I say that word surrender, usually I get like, deer in the headlights and what the hell, like, and I'm never going to surrender because that's a weak man. And what I explain is surrender means that you have wisdom. Surrender means that you're aware of what's happening or what you're doing isn't working. And also I tell them like, hey, if you're working with me, you've already surrendered. You don't even realize it. Like you're asking for help. You know that you can't do this alone. You know that you have to regroup. And I think that's a big part of this work is it's the letting go. It's the releasing all the kind of unhealthy attachments. And it's starting to allow yourself to find peace within yourself.
Do you find that I don't know if you know John Lee, who wrote Growing Yourself Back Up. Dude is just a great,
but that sounds good.
He's a great dude, been around a long time, and he talks about safety being an inside job for the betrayed, and talking about, yes, the unfaithful can live in a safe way, and that's absolutely necessary if you're going to give the relationship another chance. But do you believe that at some level the betrayed male has to create their own internal safety?
Yeah, I think that safety is not through their partner about the relationship. It's with themselves.
Yeah.
One of the things I think super important, kind of piggyback off of anger, is really looking at all your different unhealthy defense mechanisms that happen after betrayal. And I see so many men, they put up walls. They don't want to talk about it to anyone, right? And I mean, the old wall stereotype, right? It keeps people out, but it also keeps you trapped within, right? And so one of the metaphors, one of the things I like to teach men is you should have a shield, like a metaphor of a shield that you hold instead of putting up a wall. Because the shield, right, we can block what you need, but I'm still here to receive. I'm still here to be open, and I'm still here for you to see my heart, which is what most of us are protecting, but that's actually the thing that needs to come out the most. So yeah, it's the walls, we're shields. It's being connected, sharing, right? Working with men that it's safe and okay to be honest with others. And that's how you find yourself and you find your support. That's the other thing I really want people to walk away from today is you can't do this alone. You can't white knuckle this. You can't put your head down and just muscle through it. None of that stuff ever works. You need community. You need to find healing. You need to find right-minded people. You need to find people like myself and you, Sam, that know this arena and can help you grow out of it. What you don't need is to get on Reddit and join some subreddit that's trash talking and talking crap about, partners and like that stuff's so toxic, and that doesn't actually, all that does is that fuels the fire, fuels the anger, builds more walls. And guess what? If your relationship or marriage ends and that's the space you're in, you're going to be a bitter, spiteful, angry, miserable man the rest of your life. And if you ever even think you can have a relationship again, you will find the perfect, terrible partner that will match you. and you'll replay all this over again. I see it happen a lot. You probably do too, I'm guessing.
I sure do. You said something there or alluded to something that I think is such a, this book was done 20 plus years ago, I think, right, called The Tipping Point. But there's such a tipping point on the
Malcolm.
aspect that a betrayed male, when they can find another male in a dynamic like this, who in their past, especially childhood, were vulnerable and they were violated, right? And not just childhood sexual abuse, but just mistreated, misharmed. They were really wounded because they were vulnerable at one time and they were just betrayed time and time again. Do you find it hard in your practice? Well, I guess it's a two-part. Do you find it hard for men to eventually be vulnerable, but once they start to be vulnerable, do you feel like they just grab hold of it and feel like, oh my gosh, I've been missing out on something that actually could be the very thing that changes my life and my future?
Yeah, that's a big question. I mean, what I want to spin that question towards is one of the things I love about this work is I watch men, if they really are doing the work, is they start to trust again. But the bigger part is they start to trust themselves, and that's the part where I think we get to heal. That's the part where when I trust, I can let go of the idea of control. When I can trust, I realize that I can heal myself and that I can love myself and that I can start to rebuild my foundation of healing. And in that, like all my self-doubt can go away. All those stories you were alluding to at the beginning, like, did I ignore the red flags? I should have known. I wasn't enough. I wasn't good enough in bed. You start to trust and you start to know none of that is true. And in that trust, you start to rebuild your self-worth. And this work is so much about your own self-worth and your self-love and the ability to really start to lead your life on your own and to not focus on trying to control outcomes anymore. I don't know if I answered your question, but
you did in a great way. I thought that you honed in on that really well. And you actually alluded to one of the final things I wanted to ask you about as we wind down is you talk about challenging negative thoughts, and you put some verbiage to it that I thought was fantastic. You said, during this stage, you may find yourself grappling with limiting belief stories. These are stories the ego conjures up, and they often revolve around self-blame, inadequacy, or perceived failure in the relationship. You talk a lot about limiting belief stories. So how does that play out in betrayal trauma?
Well, betrayal creates like a hypervigilance, right? Where I'm trying to control everything. I'm looking at everything. I'm questioning everything. I'm doubting everything, right? And so those limiting beliefs. It's kind of like they're magnets. They just pull things in, and those are the parts that keep you stuck. So that's back to where trust and healing and surrendering come into play. And the other part is, I just want to say, I don't think it's talked about that much, but if you want to reconcile, you're going to have to trust not only yourself, but your partner. You're going to have to give it a fair shake. And not only that, you're going to have to trust yourself that you know what you want and need, and your partner knows your expectations. So that means, not having limiting beliefs like I can't ask them to do this or that when it comes to boundaries. It means actually having your boundaries, speaking them, and holding true to them. And those are the things I think that kind of will help you heal and also, mitigate those limiting beliefs.
I love what you said. The betrayed has to know what they want and need. And how do you help the betrayed that says, well, I'm afraid to want or need and just get disappointed all over again, right?
Yeah, I get that a lot. Or I get kind of what my experience personally was. I was afraid to express what I wanted or needed because I was afraid she would leave me because of it, or she would say no, or she would, right, that would push her away. And what I didn't realize was that those boundaries, those wants and needs, those were the guardrails for us to navigate healing and reconciling. And because we didn't do it, and also my ex didn't really want to in many different ways, and just never, the reconciling never had a healthy path. It was never going to happen. Looking back, I can see that. But I lied to myself saying, again, I just put my head down and muscled through it. So boundaries, I think, are the most important thing. And also, if your boundaries are reasonable, again, working with someone like us, we can help you with that. And if your partner doesn't agree to them or want them, or if they push back in a big way, that kind of already tells you a lot, right? On what their intentions are, if they really want to do the work or if they really want to reconcile. At the end of the day, I feel like the betrayer, they have a responsibility to help you heal. It's not their responsibility for you to heal, but their part is to create a space and to create safety and to be an active participant on this new journey of what you guys are going through as a couple and as individuals.
I think it's wonderfully said. Again, I want to highlight the undercurrent of what you continue to model, which is compassion and care and just an understanding for what's going on. Yeah. I can't stand when people call themselves experts in betrayal trauma or infidelity, but the undercurrent is kind of like come on, hurry up, let's go, let's get on, let's get on through it and get over it, if you will. So I just applaud that. So for people that want to find your book, if they want to know about your groups or even see you personally, if they want to find out more, how do they reach you and get in touch with you?
So the easiest way is my Betrayal website, which is betrayalshrink.com. My book, A Man's Guide to Partner Betrayals, on Amazon. My email is adam@betrayalshrink.com. I'm pretty easy to find, guys. And I do individual betrayal coaching. And also I have men's groups, of course, since this is a podcast. The next one coming up won't matter, but reach out to me. I hold them throughout the year. And always find it interesting. It's so hard to fill these groups, but I get so many inquiries a week. And I think it's the resistance men have, or it's the fear, like, crap, if I do this, I'm actually going to have to look at myself, look at what I'm doing in my life. And I want you guys to know that's fine. That's good. And it's time to surrender and it's time to do the work. You won't regret it. That's for sure.
Well, and I love when people who know what the work is talk about it. I get blown up on all the different platforms. What is the work? What is the work? It's the thing that you're running from. It's the thing that you're not doing. It's the thing that you don't have anybody in your life that you're doing the wrestling with and the work with and the tears and the anger and the ups and the downs.
The messy.
And it's, I don't know if I like Sam. I don't know if I like Adam. And then, you know what? I love them. It's that work. It's managing the tension. So, man, I'm so glad that you came in. We'll have to do it again when your schedule permits. If you need help from myself, if you want to reach out about anything that I can help you with, you know that you can reach out to me on any of the platforms that you're watching this. You can email me at samshealingpodcast@gmail.com. Adam, I'm so thankful for you. Thank you for your book. And I know that there's so many betrayed men out there, particularly, who are grateful for it. So keep doing what you're doing, bro. Keep on trucking, and we'll have you again soon. Thank you.
Thanks, man. So appreciate it. Thanks.